Hello everybody, YouTube. How's my YouTube peoples doing out there? Pretty good. That's good to hear. If not good, well, need to have a better day. Sorry for your bad day. But yeah, I just wanted to get on here uh, and discuss something. Now, normally on this channel, as you probably know, I talk video games, video game news, and sometimes I have like writing segments on here. But and then sometimes I have my serious topics. So I'm going to be talking about the interview that was in the Breakfast Club between Charlemagne the God and Monique. Now, people know Monique is a legendary comedian in the game. When I first seen her, she was on, I believe she was on Comic View on BET, because I know she was in Queens of Comedy too, and that's where I seen her too. Um, thought her segments were funny. I thought she was funny back then. So I didn't really care for her show, The Parkers, like that. I felt like the writing was a little watered down in my opinion. It wasn't as funny as her stand-ups. So now I'm getting into what I think about the whole situation because, well, I already have a video on my channel. If you want to go back and check that out about Monique's Netflix rant, but this interview is basically revolves around that entire point she was trying to make about not getting paid as much as other comedians like Dave Chappelle, um, Chris Rock, and of course Amy Schumer, which from what I've seen online, she's been like on this kick about basically just throwing Amy Schumer under the bus. Like, I got this over her, I got this over her, I've got longevity. Why am I not at least getting paid as much as Amy Schumer? And Charlemagne pretty much explained it throughout the entire interview. He was saying the reason why you're not getting paid as much is because, uh, plain and simply, you're not you're not a draw. You have no drawing power compared to these comedians. What has Monique done? I'll even go further. I'll go further. I was about to say the last few years. I'll go further than that. What has Monique done in the past 10 years? Her last she I mean, she won an Oscar, and people probably thought, well, she won an Oscar, she got this, she's got this long resume and stuff like that. But how long ago was that resume? She brought up I think she brought up her recent movie, which only came out 2 years ago. It was Almost Christmas, came out in 2016. I think this was 2016. So Almost Christmas comes out, and I actually did all the research on these numbers and stuff. So, which I think Monique was actually off about the numbers. I mean, and it's still a really good number because on a $17 million budget, that movie made $42 million. She said 46 million. It was actually $42 million. Still good though, not as much as she painted it, but that's still a really good number. And then the thing that threw me off during the interview was she came in and she put out Amy Schumer's weakest grossing film, which was the movie Snatched, and that was not a very well received movie. I think the movie it just didn't get really good reviews. A lot of people really didn't go see it like that. It made I think it only made 40. I think it only made $45 million on like a. I think it was like a 30. I think no, it was like a $42 million budget. So probably only pulled in like $4 million. So that was my thing. Like, because I thought about it for a minute. I was like, okay, Amy Schumer wasn't really known though for Snatch. Yeah, people know she put it out, but her biggest movie was Trainwreck, which actually was a good movie because I watched it myself. I thought it was funny, And Trainwreck, now and I understand that Trainwreck came out a year before Almost Christmas and Snatch, but Monique failed to put up that's the movie that put her on the map was Trainwreck. Put Amy Schumer on the map was Trainwreck. Because Trainwreck, on a $35 million budget, made over $140 million. It's a big difference. So I just felt like with that she was trying to manipulate the situation because it's like yeah you're not the draw that you used to be anymore. You're just not. Um, the when you compare yourself to someone like and Chris Rock, you comparing yourself to Chris Rock, you're comparing yourself to uh, Dave Chappelle. The difference with these comedians is even though they've been doing it 20 plus some years, like you have, the difference is though is they still have staying power. They're still funny and they're still relevant. Like people will pay to go see a Dave Chappelle show, or people will pay to go see a Chris Rock show versus paying to go see a Monique show. Like, so you put a lot of people into a room and ask them, hey, who's going to go see a Monique show? Who's going to see a Dave Chappelle show? And you'll probably get the majority of people say they would rather go see Dave Chappelle than Monique. And that's just how it is. Like, even when Dave Chappelle was gone for those 10 years, he was still doing shows. I actually watched some of his underground shows and they were funny. And he sold out all those venues. So, of course, somebody like Dave Chappelle is going to get a huge Netflix deal because he still sells. People still will pay to go see him. People are not going to pay to go see Monique anymore. Monique is just not. She hasn't been doing anything really. So yeah. If you watch in the interview, and this is what bothered me too, because in the interview, Charlemagne was giving her direct questions. He was like, "Hey, okay, what makes you think that you need to make as much money as Amy Schumer, as Dave Chappelle, as Chris Rock?" Because the thing with businesses is that's a gamble. When I put Okay, so it's like if I know you're not going to make me as much money as this guy over here that is selling out venues and stuff like that, why would I ever invest money in you? Because then that's going to hurt me as a business. Am I defending Netflix? No, I'm not defending Netflix. I think they did offer her a pretty low amount. Yeah, I mean, $500,000 is pretty low, but you have to look at it from a business standpoint too. You gotta take feelings out of it for once, and you got to look at it from a business perspective. What's going to what's actually going to benefit me in the long run? Is it paying somebody that I know is not gonna that has absolutely no staying power, who's not really that relevant, who people are not going to go pay to see? No, I'm not going to, because you do something like that, you put your business at risk, you put your money at risk, and that's not something you want to do. You don't want to do that because you'll end up sinking your company fast. That's just business. You put your money more into where you're going to make more money. If you feel like you're going to make more money off of a Dave Chappelle, you put all your eggs in one basket, which it benefited because Dave Chappelle's stand up special was one of the highest streamed shows on Netflix. Everybody and their mom's watching that. I looked up his net worth. He was given $20 million. He made $60 million. That's what I'm saying. So Netflix, because they put all their faith in Dave Chappelle, they profited $40 million. That's just how it is. Like it's just a business thing. It's all business. And that's what Monique and her husband were not understanding. They were not understanding that this Netflix thing is a business. Just like a lot of other things is a business. I feel like the only reason, and she's coming out and she's using this racially biased. Um, Netflix is racially biased. Netflix is gender bias, which I felt like she was being contradictory in that regard. Because how are they racially biased when Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle are two black comedians, and then they're gender biased, but Amy Schumer is a female comedian? I think it's a Monique bias. I think it's strictly Monique because I've heard rumors that she's really hard to work with. I've been keeping up with this stuff too. Like um, she went out on social media and made videos and stuff like that, throwing Lee Daniels under the bus, um, throwing Oprah under the bus, uh, throwing all these like black producers and stuff underneath the bus. And they've come out and said she's just extremely hard to work with. Now, I know all these people are not going to just come out and be like, yeah, well, they're not going to lie on her. Like what do they have to all gain by just lying on Monique? I mean, I see her interviews and see how she talks to people sometimes, and yeah, it's like, yeah, she seems like she'd be a hard person to work with. But yeah, man, like, but back to my original point, it was like Charlamagne was asking her these direct questions, like, so if I give you money, if what makes you think that you deserve just as much money as these other comedians who are making moves, who've been making moves for the past few years, and they've been garnering buzz, they've been getting it big. The reason why Amy Schumer got her deal is because her movie Trainwreck exceeded expectations. On a $35 million budget, this woman made over $140 million. And she was literally the main star of the movie. Like it was all her. Monique's talking about Almost Christmas. She brings up Almost Christmas, but she was only a supporting cast member. I actually looked at the whole cast for the Almost Christmas movie. She's not even a main actor in the movie. She's surrounded by other big comedians. That's why the movie even did as well as it did. So for her to put that argument on the table is kind of null and void anyway. So when he asked her that, he was like, "Yeah, so what makes you think that you deserve this much pay?" She does this roundabout thing where she dances around the question, or she does the thing where she tries to put it off to, "Oh, you're not supporting the black culture. You're not supporting black women when you make assumptions like this and you don't do your research." And he's just asked a simple question. He's like, no. And I'm glad he kept like taking what she was saying, her basically her BS, and he was like reiterating it and trying to put it back on the right track, right track. I can't talk today. The right track. He's asking like, no, you're not answering my question. Like even towards the interview, he's like, no, you're not answering my question. It's a simple question. Why do you feel like you deserve as much money as these comedians? And then he flat out told her like, you can't answer it. He's like, you have no you or your husband don't have any answers. And then another thing I like that he said was, he's like, y'all are not on the same page, because I was thinking that the entire time they were going back and forth. Her and her husband were going back and forth to Charlemagne trying to explain their case. Right? It's like they're not on the same page, because there was a point in the interview, and this threw me off. She was like, what did she say? She said, she was like, yeah, we don't have to explain everything to you. And that's when I squinted my eyes at the screen. I was like, "Are you serious? Like, what is the point of you bringing this up then if we don't have to explain anything to me? Because you're the one making this fuss about race and gender inequality and all that stuff. You can't just throw that stuff out there and then not have an explanation for it. That don't make sense." And then her husband is like, oh, yes, yes, we do, and I'll explain why. And then he has his own like roundabout way of explanation, and it's like, yeah, y'all two are not on the same page in this interview. You're just not. Like this interview from Monique, I'm gonna be honest, was really sloppy. And y'all gonna sit here and try to justify her for this interview and try to say Charlamagne the God is stupid and he's an idiot because I was looking at the comments, but I'm like I heard the interview clearly. I'm like I don't see where he's an idiot. He's asking her a question and she's not answering it. Like he's asking her a straightforward question. He's about as straightforward as you can get in this interview and she's not answering anything. He's like the whole and then that like and then what even made it worse was like they were trying to make the her and her husband were trying to make the conversation about something else. But the whole conversation was what makes you think that you can make as much money or you deserve as much money as a Dave Chappelle, as a Amy Schumer, as a Chris Rock? Like, what makes you think? Um, I'll take it even further. Shit, who else was I thinking about? I was thinking about somebody else. I lost it. It's another high paid comedian too. There's another high paid comedian. I was thinking about him. So I guess I won't go outside the spectrum. I guess I'll keep it within these comedians because that's what the conversation is about. So that was my whole thing. I'm just like the whole time I was listening to this, I'm like, okay, well, you're not answering this question. You're not answering the question of what makes you a relevant comedian. Um, and it just doesn't like she didn't have the answer. Like her or her husband did not have the answer. You could tell they didn't. Listen to the interview closely. Don't sit up there and have a bias towards anybody. Listen to the interview closely. I'm and this comes from somebody who doesn't even really care that much about Charlamagne the God. I don't like that gossip. I don't like that gossip stuff in the first place, and I feel like that's what he gets off of anyway. But listening to this interview, I was like, this dude makes a lot of sense. Like he's making way more sense than Monique. Like I'm really trying to follow her. I'm really trying to back her, but she's not making sense, and she's trying to put it off as um, race and gender equality because she's trying to fill her pockets. She doesn't care. She don't care about racial or gender equality. She doesn't. The only reason why she's saying that is because it's like, oh, they're not paying me the money because she knows deep down why she's not getting paid this much money. Come on, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure all this out. Like right when it was mentioned, I'm like, oh well, that's easy. Monique is not relevant really. Who is checking for Monique in 2018? Who was checking for Monique in 2017? Who really cared about Monique in 2016? Who really cared about Monique again, as I said at the beginning of this video, who has cared about Monique for the past 10 years? Nobody. Nobody's looking for her. I'm sorry, but that's just reality. That's the only reason why I don't feel like she deserves to be paid as much as these comedians. But then she like backtracks on it when she's like, oh yeah, well, I'm not necessarily saying that I need to be paid as much as these comedians. It's like, well, yes, you did. This is the whole argument. The whole reason why you're telling people to drop Netflix, you're telling people to boycott Netflix, is because you're not getting paid as these other comedians. That is the only reason why. And I think that's dumb. And I'm sorry, I mentioned this in my other video too about this whole situation. That's retarded to ask people to cut their Netflix subscriptions so that way you can get paid. And then when those people, those these are regular working people that go home to watch Netflix and they pay for their subscriptions, but you want them to cut it off. And then in the end, when they say they do boycott you, what are you going to give them in the end? What are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to line our pockets with what you're getting paid? You don't care about us. You don't care about a gender or racial equality movement. This is a ploy to fill your pockets. That is all this is. And I'm sorry, I see through the BS. I'm not doing it. I'm not. I'm not boycotting Netflix because this is stupid. This is dumb. This is your way of trying to cope with the fact that you're not relevant anymore and you're not getting paid as much as these comedians. These comedians have proved themselves over and over again that they're getting they deserve the pay that they're getting. They keep doing it. They're selling out venues. They're selling out they're selling out Madison Square Garden. You got Amy Schumer, who they said sold out Madison Square Garden twice. That's hard to do once. She did it twice. Can you do that? You cannot do that. The whole time Charlamagne kept asking them, like, can you sell out Madison Square Garden? Monique, can you sell out Madison Square Garden? No, she can't. That's why she was never. That's why she didn't answer the question. She cannot do it. They're gonna come up with, oh well, we sold out nightclubs. Okay, that's a nightclub to Madison Square Garden. There's no comparison. That's only like that's barely even a 16th of what Madison Square Garden is. So that's what I'm saying. Like that makes that you have no comparison. There's nothing there. You're just an angry, bitter comedian who has to realize that you're you have a reputation for being really hard to work with. You're not relevant. You haven't been relevant for the past 10 years. Um, and I give you your accolades. Yes, you are a legend. Yes, you do have an Oscar. But how long ago was that Oscar? That Oscar was back in 2009. Precious came out in 2009. This is 2018. So that's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't. It was like it wasn't resonating with her, or she's one of those people that knows it deep down inside, and she doesn't want to accept the reality of the situation. But that's the reality. And people are like, well, don't side with Netflix, don't side with Netflix. It's like I kind of see where Netflix is coming from, though. I'm not banking on somebody who's not going to give me, who's not going to uh, retract uh, anything I give you. So you mean to tell me that they should go ahead and give Monique $13 million just so she could barely even come close to recouping that cost. Then the company took a hit. They don't want to risk that. That's just a business model. And this doesn't just go for Monique because it was mentioned Wanda Sykes. That goes for her too. Nobody cares for Wanda Sykes. Who cares for Wanda Sykes? Like seriously, like I wouldn't even dare think of watching a Wanda Sykes special. You got me messed up. I'm not doing it. That's just how it is. I've never really thought she was funny at all. And then so you got that. Um, who else did she mention? She mentioned another comedian too, and then yeah, she mentioned the Queens of Comedy too. And I gotta say, like those Queens of Comedy, like Samora and all of them. Okay, here's my thing about them now. Like I think they're kind, I think they're kind of funny, but the problem with them is like they're funny. The problem with them is they have what I call like one audience jokes. So basically, their jokes only pertain to one audience, and that's predominantly black women. That's that humor, and unfortunately, that humor doesn't make money. That's why Tiffany Haddish is making money because her comedy moves away from that. So that's what I'm saying. Like it, and then she was a breakout hit and Girls Trip. So I mean, that's the difference with like those Queens of Comedy back in the '90s. They only had jokes that pertain to a certain audience, and when you have jokes that pertain to only a certain audience, then nobody's going to really be checking for you. Like a lot of people are not going to come out there and see you because some people that are not going to understand that comedy. Like I get the comedy. I don't think after a while I start really not thinking it's like not all that funny. It's like okay, you only got one. It's like okay, you've literally only got one lane. You got one set of jokes. Can you do anything else? And then some of those comedians, they can't break out of that, and then that's what causes them to slip backwards. I think Monique falls into that category too sometimes. Like the jokes are not the jokes don't grab so many audiences. Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, um, Dave Chappelle, he appeals to both the black and the white demographic. Chris Rock pertains to mainly the white demographic majority of the time. And then of course Amy Schumer, she pertains to the white demographic. So unfortunately, they're going to make more money because of their jokes, the range of their jokes, the range of how their jokes work. So um, that's pretty much all I had to say, really. I don't think I really have anything else. I just saw this video. I saw the video today. I haven't watched some parts like over and over again because there were some valid points made. But yeah, as far as Monique's take on this, I'm gonna be honest. Her. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, Charlotte Man got owned by Monique," and I'm like, no, I thought Monique's delivery was kind of sloppy, honestly. I thought her delivery was sloppy. I thought she wasn't on the same track with her husband, so his delivery was kind of sloppy. And they weren't answering direct questions. They were going off in tangents about other stuff, um, about how black comedians being treated and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I think black women are being treated wrong in Hollywood. I think black women do get the shorthanded stick in Hollywood. I think black men get shorthanded stick in Hollywood. I think Hollywood is still a racist entity in its own right. It is. It is predominantly a white-owned business. The problem is, though, is I don't think that's the case with this, though. I think Monique and her husband is trying to make this situation something that is actually not. It's not a racist. It's not a racial bias or it's not a gender bias. It's just an issue that her and Netflix have to work out, but she's trying to make it this big thing. And then what that typically does is that trivializes the black female actors that or comedians that are going through this. And I think that's messed up of her to do something like that. I think that seriously is, So I mean, seriously, don't fall for the BS. Don't fall for the craziness. I seriously think this is a Monique thing. I don't think it's a racial thing or nothing like that. I think she's manipulating the situation to make it seem like that's what it is, and it's not. So that's all I gotta say. I ran it for almost a half an hour. If you like my channel, comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see y'all next time on YouTube. Peace.